Every time I think things can't get any crazier, I'm wrong, and they do just that. In the next few days, there's a brand new one-time only transfer portal window that will be opening, and this could bring absolute chaos to college football. But I think the bigger picture we've got to look at here is this could be the answer to the transfer portal chaos that's been going on. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking about the brand new transfer portal window that Ross Dellenger reported on yesterday, how it looks, what it means, and honestly, I'm going to take it down the direction of this could be the answer for the next 5, 10, 15, however many years this transfer portal kind of chaos goes on for. I actually think this could be a very interesting, solid potential situation, I guess is how we'll phrase it. Then we're going to talk about a brand new recruit to the 2026 basketball class. Very excited about this guy's game. We'll get into that in the second segment. And finally, we're going to round out today's episode with a few kind of miscellaneous Iowa State news pieces before we dive into Farmageddon Friday tomorrow. Rocco being underrated in college football 26, something I am definitely going to talk about because I seem to really be excited about this game, even though I'm not actually mentally thinking about it. I'm just subconsciously always thinking about it. Nonetheless, before we get that far, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, I personally have Ross Dellenger's tweet notifications on because somewhere in the range of 80 to 85% of the time that I'm getting a notification from Ross Dellenger, it means something's going down. And today I got a notification saying, hey, by the way, Ross Dellenger put out this tweet. I kind of glanced at it. I was like, okay, wait, hold up. It was one of those got it. Wait, we got to have to revisit that. This was the tweet that I saw. It says, there is a new one-time transfer portal window. That was all that came across on my notification screen. And I immediately said, hold up, that doesn't seem, I'm going to have to read into this a little bit more. So that's what we're talking about now. The NCAA Committee on Legislative Relief has issued a waiver to permit athletes whose schools place on, quote, designated student athlete, quote, lists to enter the portal July 7th through August 5th. DSAs, or those designated student athletes, are grandfathered in athletes exempt from roster limits. So before we dive into all of the super nitty gritties here, which I will try to keep it as brief and just kind of broad spectrum as I can, basically what's happening here is there is now going to be a transfer portal from July 7th to August 5th, but it's for students or athletes, I suppose, that schools place on this DSA list, this designated student athlete list. The first thing that comes to mind is this was literally created for Jake Retzloff. And I understand where you're coming from. I had the same exact thought, but after reading through all of this here, I think this is maybe something that's kind of been in the works at least a little bit. Maybe it was pushed out a little bit quicker, potentially due to one singular player. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I find that hard to believe. But nonetheless, I do think that this was kind of rooted in the House settlement, which is what they've talked about here in some of Ross's tweets. But basically, to get down to the DSA list here, just so we can make this clear and then we can kind of build from here. An athlete is eligible to be placed on a DSA list if he or she meets these three criteria. So 1, would have been removed from the school's 2025-26 roster due to new roster limits. 2, was an eligible member of a team in 24-25. 3, was recruited and assured by a school of a 2025-26 roster spot. Now, Ross doesn't say and or in there between 2 and 3, so I'm going to go with or. I'm not exactly sure because I mean, for freshmen, how does that work? That would be you're not on the team you're prior, but you are guaranteed a roster spot or at least recruited and assured. That's how I'm going to go about it. And I'm trying to see if there was anything else in here that was really important. It says another important point. Wow, literally the word important. Designating an athlete as a DSA is entirely at the school's discretion, not the athlete's choice. That is pretty important. And schools have agreed to, quote, act in good faith, quote. We all know that anytime someone ever agrees to act in good faith, they always do that. Literally every single time. This was a part of the House settlement negotiations to revisions of the roster limit concept. Right, that makes sense. These athletes are put on a DSA list, are one, exempt from roster limits at their current school, and are exempt from roster limits at their new school should they transfer. The DSA tag remains with the athlete for their career, another piece negotiated in the settlement. Okay, interesting. Very interesting there. And the last thing that I thought that was pretty important here, let's see, I feel like there was something else that was really important. I think the biggest thing is that they have to be put on this list by the school, right? So is this the Jake Retzloff transfer portal? Maybe. You could probably call it that. And I don't think it'd be that far off just because the timing is like pretty specific. Oh, the other thing was that they had to be put on the DSA list by July 6th. That's what I was thinking of. So the portal will open on the 7th, close on August 5th. These athletes need to be put on the DSA list by the 6th. Okay. Now, this is where we get interesting. Okay. We've laid out the ground rules. Let's break it down. I think that this makes sense, but also at the exact same time, in the same timeline, makes zero sense at all, to be completely honest. If this is tied to the House settlement, and I'll try to keep this quick, if this is tied to the House settlement, basically what they're saying is that because of the roster, negotiations that they went through, which was holding up the settlement, and instead of, forcing athletes or whatever, forcing schools to have athletes come back, and we grandfather the roster limit down, basically the schools can bring them back if they want. After there was a bunch of cuts that were made in preparation for a hard 105 number or whatever the number might be for whatever sport. Very weird situation. So then the schools were like, you know what? How about this? Let's make it fair by saying that instead of making the schools bring these players back, we just allow the schools, still in the power is still in the schools, to decide, instead of saying, all right, we want you back, we'll put you on this list and now you can transfer out. I don't get it fully. I don't completely understand the logic there. You're still putting it in the hands of the schools, and why? I guess it's a new transfer portal, but like, if I just don't, the rationale here is odd to me. Like, why wouldn't we just maybe force them all back on, and then they can join the roster or the DSA? What this DSA transfer portal would be if they had previously been cut. That's I don't get it. Okay, whatever. But I can kind of see where they're coming from. I can kind of see the logic here. This is, I think, probably a smart play. Probably it makes a little bit of sense. We'll definitely see Jake Retzloff on a different team, or at least I believe so, at least for next season. That's the way I'm looking at this now with the new transfer portal. And honestly, I'm going to break down why I think that this is the future of the transfer portal coming up right after this. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. The most surprising thing that I noticed when I started tracking my spending with Monarch was the little things adding up over time. All right. I know that we are all thinking, oh, this $3, candy bar from name your local gas station is no big deal. Well, when you're making that purchase as many times as I was, it was a big deal. And Monarch helped me find that right away and figure out how we could stop that. Maybe we should stop doing that. That'd be a smart play. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So a little bit of continuation of this talk about this new transfer portal, because it took me a little longer to break it down. It's very complicated, very confusing. Nonetheless, I think we have it nailed down. here at Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're still confused, at Nick_Marv on Twitter or in the comment section down below. I can do my best to try to describe the way I understand it. It's kind of like your own personal AI, Locked On Cyclones AI. Is that something that's coming down the pipe? Should we figure that out? That'd be pretty sweet. Nonetheless, all right, let's try to wrap this up, put a nice little bow on it, throw it under the tree. If you have a Christmas tree at this point, how are you going to keep that alive? All right, let's actually dial it in here. I think this could be the future of the transfer portal. It will take a little bit of tweaking, a little bit, but I do think I can see the vision. I can see the vision of the future just as much as I can kind of see where they're coming from, right? Like it's a little bit like, I get it, kind of. Same thing with the future. Like there is potential for this. And I think really what it's rooted in is that the school is involved in the transfer portal process. If you disagree, let me know because I can see this being a hot take. It's just my brain working in hypotheticals. For this DSA transfer portal window to work, players need to be put on a DSA list by their school. I wonder if down the road that's something we can do where the school and the player have to come to an agreement to allow transfers, and I don't know if that works out. I don't know if that's something that can get done. It's probably going to have contracts involved. There will probably be holdouts. It'll get messy. It might be related to, either before a certain amount of transfers or after a certain amount of transfers that this takes place. But I think that this would in some ways slow down the transfer portal. Would it create as many problems as it solves? No, it would probably create more problems than it solves. That's just my guess, knowing how things seem to work in this kind of realm. But I don't think it's that far off. I don't think it's as crazy as just letting anyone go into the transfer portal at any time for any reason and go anywhere and then go in and come back to the school. And well, it doesn't make any sense right now. So if there were some level of, you can earn, you do this to earn this, which allows you to enter the transfer portal, or, you're put on the transfer portal list by your coach. I could see that getting to be a major problem really quickly. So I'm not saying that that's the right answer. I'm just saying that this might be a step in the direction of the transfer portal starting to make more sense. I'm not saying that the coaches are the only ones who's deciding who's going where in the transfer portal. That could be a major problem really quickly, and it's probably going to lead to more guys quitting and basically cutting their career short. I'm not saying I want that. Just saying that there could be some regulation to it, and I wonder if this is, if nothing else, not even the right play, a step towards what we're seeing. Could this be some sort of stepping stone, right, for all of the universities, for basically everyone at the NCAA, like in command, like testing out, like, how does this work with someone being appointed to a list, via this, that, and the other. I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat here, but like that's a real potential possibility. We're going to leave it at that because that is purely speculative. If you agree, disagree, have a different thought, let me know in the comments or at Nick_Marv. But we're going to move on to the 2026 basketball recruiting class, where Iowa State has just made a pickup that I genuinely think makes the team a lot better. Okay. Now, sometimes you see these highlight tapes of players and you're like, okay, I can see it, but I'm going to need to see a little bit more. I'm going to need to see this guy, at this level. He'll probably develop really well, yada, yada, yada. That's not the case at least for myself. Watching Marcus Zalee's tape, I was very impressed. And Marcus Zalee, if you're seeing this, we're very happy you're a Cyclone. Welcome to Cyclone Nation. Super excited to get you into Hilton Magic and get to play in one of the greatest venues in all of college basketball. The 6'2" guard from, I believe, Austin, Texas, has committed to Iowa State. And I've got a whole just slew of quotes here that absolutely, they scream Iowa State. They really do. The way that he's talking about how he was recruited and what's important to him and seeing what's important for Iowa State. I'm going to be honest. I'm just not going to read them all because it just, that's not what I think is probably the right move here. I think that it absolutely takes a peek into who Zali is, but I don't think it's not fair for me to read all these quotes because it's like I didn't say him, you know. But a few of them here, I chose Iowa State because I felt the coaches did a really good job outlining my development plans. I wanted to choose a school with a reputation built on toughness, who, grit, who, guys who live in the gym, who, and a defensive-minded team. Those who were added by me. Sorry, I was getting a little bit too hyped up. That was not Marcus Lee. Although if he did do that and they didn't put it in the quote, I am genuinely upset about that. To continue, I'm a guy who loves the gym and always wants to get better. Honestly, it felt like home from the moment I stepped into Ames. True that. The community welcomed me. Everyone I encountered was polite, and I couldn't ask for anything better than that. I'm going to leave it there. I think that there's plenty. You can find these quotes all over right now, just because this is a big signing. I feel like for Iowa State. I guess I'll throw in this one really quickly because I think this says a lot about Iowa State basketball, the program. I loved how the coaches didn't promise me anything. They told me I'd have to work for everything I get. And to me and my family, that's what it's all about. So he's built for Iowa State. He absolutely is. And Iowa State didn't go at the recruiting process, I feel like, any differently than they have in the past. And to just kind of speak on what I saw in Marcus Ali's game, this guy, I mean, we're looking at potential legit baller here. All right. Obviously certified, but maybe even signed, sealed, and delivered type of baller. There was the highlight tape I watched included all sorts of different aspects of the game. Things that stood out to me: very solid in transition, quick to get up and down the floor, and also in the assist game. I thought his assist game was strongest in transition. He could throw the ball on a dime from across the court, although he was also still very creative in the half court, crossing, finding small passing lanes, bounce passes, getting it inside, this, that, and the other. You understand the point. Still very good in that aspect, but I thought he was very, very good at throwing kind of, if you will, the long ball, kind of stretching the floor in transition, not only from the runner or the scorer's perspective, but also as the passer. His spot up shooting stood out to me immediately. This guy, I mean, it's like the Peter Griffin corner three, that meme. That's literally what it felt like for the first 2 or 3 minutes of the spot up shooting portion. The kid can shoot from, really, it seems like, all over, but that corner three, very good at it. Very, very good at that. Coming off the screen, solid. I didn't think it was maybe his strongest portion of the game, but I'm not a basketball coach, so I can't really critique that. The other thing, though, was this kid's hustle. This kid's hustle stood out to me like none other. I mean, are you kidding me, brother? This kid was dropping on the hoop. I mean, in every way you could possibly think of. You're probably like, oh, does he mean like coming down on the ball and blocking shots? Yup. Oh, do you mean like crashing from the outside to stop plays? Yup. Do you mean like crashing from the outside to get boards as a guard? Yup. Remember last season we were talking about Otzelberger and how this was a concept that, the bigs kind of do the blocking and the guards come in and swoop the ball. I can't remember the exact term. I didn't have it in my notes. It was just something that made sense at the time. So unfortunately, I didn't write it down. If you remember, let me know either on Twitter at @Nick_Marv or in the comments. I think it was oh, gosh, I can't remember. I want to say crashing, but I don't think it was that. But the concept being that the guards are kind of the ones that grab the boards and the big guys down low are just boxing people out. Zali is literally perfect for that role. I mean, the guy is constantly, his basketball IQ, especially on the defensive side, I feel like very, very good, knowing when to go to the ball to stop from the backside. Unreal. And his hops on the block side, really, I mean, impressive. There was one, his teammate like clipped his feet out because he jumped so high to block a shot. I was surprised. No comment from the teammate. They just kind of kept playing. And Zali definitely took a hard fall there. So don't think that'll happen at Iowa State. I think that he will be taken care of in that regard. But man, this kid's got hops. He's got speed. He's got shooting. Iowa State got a good one in this a non-ranked, but 3-star guard, Marcus Zali. All right, we're gonna stick a little bit with some basketball to start off this third segment. And then we're gonna transition to the most fun conversation potentially of the day, depending on whose perspective you're coming from. Right after this. So, staying in the basketball lane here. I'm going to just cut straight to the chase. Dominicus Plata is in Ames. That's right. The round of applause was a little weak, but as far as I know, I'm the only one in this room. So maybe it's good that it was only the one clap. Anyways, Dominicus Plata has officially arrived in Ames. There was some kind of trouble with his visa, but it wasn't anything that anyone was really too concerned about. It seemed like he was cleared, but it was just like a weird delay. It says Plata was his visa was approved weeks ago, but was delayed in being able to pick it up. Otzelberger, in that media availability we were talking about the last week, I believe, he said that there's not an exact day that he'll be here. I wish it was 10 days ago, but as soon as he's able to get his visa, he will be here and we'll get him integrated into our process. And then he's now here. Iowa State basketball at Cyclone MBB tweeted out a picture of him dunking it. It looks like he's still going up in the picture somehow. I mean, this guy's going to be a weapon for Iowa State. So that's super exciting. And I think it's really good for him to get into the program, to kind of get that, how do Iowa State basketball players act? How do Iowa State basketball players train? How do Iowa State basketball players recover? How do they treat each other? Basically quoting Otzelberger as far as the mental side, learning the lingo, learning the plays, whatever. The style of basketball. I think it's great to get him in the building. It wasn't as early as we maybe would have liked, but he's here now. And that's what really matters. Enjoying, and looks like in this picture, that looks to me like Hilton. Now, I can't be for certain, but it does look like that to me based on the lighting. That's what I'm going to go off of. That's a big one. That is a super fun one. Now, there's not too much to that. I'm going to leave it right there. I just want to let you guys know Dominicus Plata is, in fact, in town. I'd like to pivot a little bit more towards some football because it's coming up. It's, to my knowledge, the most, the sport that will be effectively next. Of course, there will be other sports at the same time, but basically, football is what we're all looking forward to. So, College Football 26 is coming out, and I've talked about how I'm very excited to play this game. Very, very pumped up for a new version. Probably going to be very, very similar to last year's, but it'll have the new Iowa State roster on it. Always super fun. And remember, guys, if we play as Iowa State a ton, Iowa State makes money off of that. So that's also another incentive to go and play. But I did see this. Their top 20 quarterbacks came out for College Football 26. And you're going to have to tell me if I was unreasonably upset at this. Because I genuinely, I don't know if I have anyone else to turn to say, like, should I be less upset about this, or should I maybe even be more upset about this? We've talked about quarterback rankings across the board before. We've talked about top 100s. We've talked about all sorts of things, and Iowa State and Rocco Beck especially have been left out of those conversations. And I guess I just kind of like figured that things would get better. It doesn't seem like that's the case. Let's start at number 1. I feel like that's a good spot to start here. It's top 20. And this list, to me, is almost like confusing. Not going to lie. Cade Klubnik at 1. And I'll go back through, maybe say some of their ranks, like their overall ratings. I'm just going to go with the order for now. Cade Klubnik now. Wow. Geez, say that 5 times fast. Cade Klubnik at 1 from Clemson. Garrett Nussmeier, 2, LSU. Drew Aller, Penn State, 3. Sam Levitt, 4, ASU, obviously. Lenora Sellers, South Carolina, 5. John Mateer, Oklahoma, 6. Carson Beck, Miami, 7. Blake Horvath, Navy, 8. Arch Manning, 9. Texas. DJ Lagway, Florida, 10. Avery Johnson, 11. Kansas State. Kevin Jennings, SMU, 12. Darian Mensah, Duke, 13. Luke Altmaier, Illinois, 14. Caden Salter, Colorado, 15. Nico Iamaliava, UCLA, 16. Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt, 17. I just kind of got into, I think I was just hypnotized right there. That was kind of an interesting little saying all those names. I paused because we do have Rocco Becht, Iowa State, at 18. The 2 below Rocco, Jake Retzloff at 19, and Sawyer Robertson at 20. I just don't think that's right. I'm not going to lie to you. I just don't see without pulling up the stats and pulling up the tape and going after any 1, 2, or 3 guys. I don't feel like people understand how good Rocco Becht is. Maybe they're putting too much into essentially Nolan Higgins or the receiving core he had last season. That could be the case too. I will say, looking at the ratings can be kind of dicey, can be kind of messy at times. Cade Klubnik, Nussmeier, and Aller, all came in at 92s, and Rocco came in at an 88. So there's that. Sam Levitt, a 91, all the way down to Carson Beck. Blake Horvath, a 90, all the way down to DJ Lagway. And then the 89s were Avery Johnson to Luke Altmaier, that 11 to 14 range. So roughly chunks of 4-ish, 3 to 4. And then a big chunk of 88s, 15 to 20, all 88s. What you're telling me is essentially, I don't know exactly how these are rated, because I wonder what's the tiebreaker other than overall, right? What puts Cade Klubnik at 1 and Drew Aller at 3 if they're both 92s? Is it, it's not alphabetical because Garrett Nussmeier is in there in the middle. But is it speed? Is it throw power? Is it what's the thing on the side here that's the tiebreaker? But basically what you're telling me is that Rocco is at most a 15 and at lowest a 20. And so effectively could be better or worse than Caden Salter, Nico Iamaliava, Diego Pavia, Jake Retzlaff, Sawyer Robertson. I honestly think that Sawyer Robertson even got disrespected, probably even worse. I think the Big 12 is the best quarterback league in the entire college football landscape. I just think that that's true. Avery Johnson, Rocco Becht, Sawyer Robertson, TCU, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Not even on this list. It's obviously Sam Levitt at potentially 4. I was shocked to see Carson Beck as high as he was. I get it. Actually, no, I don't. I don't even get it, because Rocco Becht is that good at throwing the ball, and he's also extremely good at running the ball, extending the play that way, getting first downs that way, keeping drives alive with the ground game. I think, I don't know if they are going to update these as much as they update Madden. I know in Madden they update them like almost every single week. If they do that, I wouldn't be surprised if Rocco moves up to in that 91 category. Just with the slew of options, which I think I've used that twice. The sheer absurd number of options that Rocco Becht has to throw to, be it running backs, quarterback, running backs, tight ends, or wide receivers. He's going to have all sorts of options, and all of those guys are all playmakers. Yards after catch are going to be crazy. Touchdowns going to be crazy. Completion percentage due to a wide catch radius going to be crazy. I can't believe he's where he's at now, and it's hard for me to imagine him not going up throughout the course of the season. I get it; it's a video game, but I do think this translates to how people generally perceive Rocco Becht, and I just 18, really, that feels wrong. Let me know what you think. Where would you put Rocco Becht in the entire college football landscape as far as quarterbacks go? Would you put him in the top 10? That feels pretty ambitious. I don't know where I'd put him exactly. I'd have to watch some more tape, I think. Speaking of more tape, you should go and watch more Locked On Cyclones. Still free. Still more Cyclone insight from yours truly at Nick_Marv on Twitter. And the subscribe button down below is free. Completely free. Helps you prove it's in fact a Cyclone state. I appreciate every single one of you guys for listening until this point in the episode. And I will see you guys next time. Until next time, Cyclone fans. Sign.